you've done a lot of theater. Have you done a role this long before?
No, I don't think, no. The longest I did was Coast of Utopia, which was a 3-part, massive trilogy at Lincoln Center when Thomas Stockford wrote.
Broadway show.
And that was, 3, oh my gosh, that was maybe 3 years ago. And, just ended 3 years ago. That was 9 months. That ended up being 9 months once we extended it and everything like that. But that was multiple characters in all 3 shows. And so I wasn't attached to any. It didn't feel like I was living in one person's skin for that long. Like this.
How did you adjust to the way daytime is shot? You basically, you had a lot of lines. You're doing it kind of in one take. You're doing it really quick and moving on. Versus rehearsal and preparing for the show.
Right. It was, I had the one day a few years ago on the other show, and so that I at least knew that they don't rehearse. And so that was good to know going into it. And I was shocked that you just walk into a room like this, kind of just roughly block it, and then just see everybody down on the floor, walk it through it once for cameras, and then they tape it. And it's amazing how little, usually even you're used to rehearsing things over and over and over, so that by the time that you actually come around to shooting your stuff, you know it really well, you feel confident about it, you've made some good choices, hopefully, and the first day, as much as I thought I had prepared that first day on this show, I was a bit shell-shocked. I was we did it, I was fine. Then I couldn't find anybody to run lines with. I didn't know where anybody was in the building. I didn't know, and just ended up just barely getting dressed, going down to the floor, and meeting Jake. He the only time in the time that I was there, and I think the only time in his 4 years there or whatever, that he slept in and missed his alarm, didn't show up in the morning, and so we never rehearsed. And anyway, it was I forget what the first scene was when I actually show up at the hospital and I say something. And I was just kind of staring through Van's eyes into the back of his skull, just trying to get through it. Something about a silver spoon in his mouth, and then I take. I'm supposed to refer to my watch, and I'm holding a file, and I'm carrying a coat, and then I'm supposed to hold Jake's arm and lead this blind guy through a door, and he kind of bumped into the door, and then they go, okay, that's a bye, and we moved on, and really.
And the sets are like this big, too.
You're going to keep that? I couldn't believe that they wanted to keep that, and they didn't. And it ended up looking fine once it's all, all the cuts are in. And so then after that first day, I went, okay, I really need to done my stuff before even more than I thought. So I would drill it before I showed up to the studio.
This is such a historic show. They shot the pilot in November 1955, and it's debuted April 1956. And Helen Wagner passed away in May, but she had been she was in the original 1955 pilot, so there's like nothing else that I know of where a person has done that. There's so much history.
And Don had been on it just 2 years after it started, right?
Yeah, Don Hastings started in the day As the World Turns debuted, another soap debuted, Edge of Night. He was on that show for 4 years. There was also a Procter & Gamble show.
Right.
He left that show in 1960 and immediately started on As the World Turns. So he's been doing these shows every day. And for the first 20 years of World Turns, it was live.
Yeah.
So, and they have great stories.
That was one of my favorite things about working with Don and Kathy, was talking to both of them. And then when Larry came on too, just about what it was like to do it live.
They have great stories about...
get them going and just listen to them talk.
I love hearing about how the set wall fell down and had to just keep going, or at the end of the episode there's supposed to be this dramatic organ music, but they play it in like the scene before the end, so then they have nothing to play at the end. It's just like, and yeah, it's very funny.
Yeah.
Could you imagine doing this live? They did rehearse a little bit. Yeah.
They used to rehearse. They used to rehearse all morning. They would get together and do a read through the night before. I mean, all unheard of stuff, and then they'd do a blocking, and then they would go live. And so it was almost, and it was only 15 minutes, I think, at that point. It didn't go to a half hour until later.
Right.
And then...
no, actually, As World Turns debuted 30 minutes.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, most of the soaps up until that point had been 15.
Right.
But that was the first 30-minute soap.
Okay. And so it's but the format that it is now, no way, they couldn't imagine that scene.
It might be funny
into it.
If you get tongue-tied on Olive Reed's crazy lines or something.
Yeah, you have to really figure out how to dig yourself out of several holes. It would work.
But people did a lot of theater too. They would rehearse the show in the morning, tape it live, or shoot it, it was live on the air, and then they would do theater at night.
Do a show,
a lot of people did that. They somehow kept it all straight.
Right. Well, Michael Park was doing a musical all through the end of this. He was shooting during the day, and then he would go to the theater at night and do that. What was it?
Burnt Park Boys?
Yeah.
Right.
Something.
Yeah, he's really talented. So you're not a singer?
I'm not.
That's what Dan said, but then he sang a song in a play called Dance Dance Revolution, called Shake Your Ass for Freedom. And he was in tune. It was actually pretty good.
I can hold a tune. I have a little folky voice, but I can't do music.
Right. Okay. Well, so Reed won't be singing before the end of the show.
I can't say. No.
Are you? I won't talk about exactly what happens, but are you satisfied with the conclusion of the character?
Oh yeah. It was. That was one of the interesting things about coming on when I did in the last year of the show. Was that he had an arc, which was nice. It's just one storyline that kind of goes through, and then it has an ending. And you often get to have that sort of. It is satisfying to not just leave the character hanging. And I liked the way they wrapped it all up. I thought it was really well done.
Would you do another soap?
Sure. Yeah.
Sure.
There really aren't that many.
Well,
there's only one here now.
Yeah, and that's sad as a New Yorker.
Right.
There are 8 primetime shows shooting this fall here, including the new Tom Selleck show.
Oh, really?
Blue Blood Guys, or Blue Hound Gang, something.
It's
like a Friday night new Tom Selleck show. It's like that's one you could get on. But yeah, there is some primetime work here. It's sad about daytime because at one point there were many soap shooting here, and it was just a lot of work, and it kind of helped people survive who did a lot of theater. They would make money during the day doing these parts.
Well, there were 4 here just 2 years ago. There's just one.
Right. But there are, what we cover at WeLoveSoaps is what we call indie soaps. There's a lot of shows on the web. Of course, people haven't quite mastered how to make money off of them. It's like shooting an indie film, and maybe you'll get paid if we get picked up kind of thing. Right. But there's a lot of creativity on the web, and I think it's going to take off at some point.
Yeah.
Way that you can actually make money.
Yeah, right.
You worked a little bit with Larry Brigman, who we did a countdown of 50 greatest soap actors of all time recently. We had 15 different critics from 40 years of covering soaps. Listen, he came in, I think, number 3.
Is that right?
And John Dixon is my all-time favorite Ezra Thorne's character. And he's been off the canvas then, but for 35 years he played that character and did theater, and he kind of was like.
I've seen him do theater.
What was it like working with him?
Oh, I loved it. We only got together to work together, I think, 2 weeks. Quite short, but I interacted with him all the time, and I was honored because sorry, never mind. That was a plot thing.
I'm working to try to get it.
But it was great to work with him. He's fantastic, and he's just a lovely guy. He's very good. So
Reed is almost like a modern day John Dixon. And the Reed and Chris rivalry is very much like young John and Bob from when I was a kid. Yeah. So my dream was...
Danny is fantastic. I love him. He's a great guy.
My dream scene was John comes back and him and Bob are kind of watching Chris and Reed argue, and they're just looking saying like, this is us. Like, it's the next generation.
So that's funny.
That's how I kind of thought it might work out.